Socially radical. Socially radical. Socially radical. Socially radical. Socially radical. Guitarist.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Socially Radical Guitarist. Song you heard just now was March of the Rare Bird from Heavy Meddlers and their album Father Figure. I wanted to do something new today. I regret Booker and Guesamole was supposed to be here this week. But I knew and I was aware of the fact that he might not have been able to make the arrangement. Very busy doing the rounds, explaining what happened at the elections and what the next step is for African communists. So, regretfully, he's not going to be here in the political half for this week, but he should be here next week. But anyways, just before I get into what's great about this song, I'm going to do, the regular disclaimers that I usually do. So anything I say or anything that my guests say on this show are the respective opinions of the host and the guests. They have nothing to do with Radio Waterloo, any of its subsidiaries, or any of its affiliates. So no, try as you might, you cannot sue public radio over this program. And yes, while the African and Caribbean Inclusion Center is sponsoring this show, the respective opinions of the host and the guests are solely the opinions of the host and the guests. So don't sue the nonprofit either. Support the nonprofit, especially support their drive for full integration, full inclusion, and full equality. When Africans and Caribbeans in particular, and refugees in general, come to Canada, they should be fully integrated, fully included, and fully equal. So support the organization that is trying to make that mission a reality. Also, Socially Radical Web Design is partnered with Socially Radical Guitarist. So if you are in need of a website, it is Socially Radical Web Design at a socially reasonable price. Go to the website and fill out a form if you want to fill out a form. Fill out the contact form if you want me to reach you, or call me on Telegram or WhatsApp. Also, Name Hero is the hosting for both sites, Socially Radical Guitarist and Socially Radical Web Design. So if you're already a web developer and just need hosting, you can go to any of the sponsor links on Socially Radical Guitarist or Socially Radical Web Design and get discounted Name Hero web hosting. So, let's just get to what's good about this song. I like that it's using very different polyrhythms for the time signatures. It's basically, I think it's a 7/5 song, and it goes through a 7/5 time signature. I really like the basically the refrain lick. Yeah, it's very beautiful. The interesting chord progression. It's all beautiful. Even some of these it's it's really nice that the band is so tight that they're able to work in sync like that. There's a lot of beautiful improv that the guitar is doing over those basic main ideas, and that sort of beauty in progressive music is now a lost art. In the 70s, it was huge to be able to play music like this. It was controlled by the mafia, but the mafia controlled it because it was very good music. Um, there wasn't that monopoly on the propagation of culture. So it was very good for talented musicians around the US to get noticed for what was really well crafted and really well put and really well orchestrated works. Um, and I really am worried that even fusion like this is becoming a lost art. I have a few other fusion tracks showing up later. Very, very noteworthy ones. One is The Eternal Fact of Water from a collab with Jakub Zytecki and Maxim Micic. Maxim Micic is Serbian. Jakub Zytecki, he doesn't even talk about where he's from in his bio. He's Polish. I think he's probably ashamed. I mean, I'd be ashamed. That Polish minister, what a racist, absolute racist, and a NATO ally. So it goes to show and reinforces what we say about NATO on the show. But basically, yeah, that comes from the Wish Lotus Proof album, and it's very good. Jakub Zytecki, he definitely puts in a lot of different influence into his music, a lot of different cultural influences. The song coming up uses African music. It's based off of African beats, and the way these two guitarists work together on the African beats and do the fusion inspired chord changes. It's very, very beautiful. It's a long track, but it's very beautiful. Every portion of this track is very good. You definitely don't want to miss that. Yeah, of course, the last song coming up is going to be pretty good as well. I'll announce it after the political segment. And we're kind of in a crossroads politically in different areas. You see, politics have basically stagnated. On the international stage, more countries are just getting the NATO countries are just getting more belligerent, more aggressive, and I think Lithuania, one of the the prime minister of Lithuania had come out and said, and he basically says the quiet part out loud, that this war on Russia is undermining Western superiority. So basically, it's an argument over tactics among the imperial core. Lithuania wants NATO to focus exclusively on China and not aggravate Russia in order to see if they can try to get a split between the two. More countries are run by the corporations that have a lust and a desire for Russia's mineral and oil and gas wealth. So that's primarily what's motivating the predatory push towards Russia. Uh, and of course, you have house Negroes like Miss Greenfield, U.S. ambassador, coming down to Africa and threatening threatening the African people into complying with the sanctions regime. So there's a lot going on. A lot of changes domestically. Things have gotten very silly. Uh, there's this nonsense dichotomic battle between democracy and autocracy that does not exist. It is not a battle between democracies and autocracies. This is evidenced by what happened to Afghanistan. Immediately after the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan, there was just nothing but damage and destruction in their wake. They also robbed the government of $7 billion. They stole their assets as punishment for beating them in the war. And that has now left a whole generation of children with little to no future. Many of them are being pulled out of school, not just women, little boys too, are being pulled out of school to work and to, sell trinkets on the street in order for the family to somehow survive. The conditions are now worse than in Afghanistan than they are in all of Africa. And this is a direct result of the U.S. false flag operation in 2001 to justify their predatory oil drive in the Middle East. The Eurasian strategy. Actually, the Eurasian strategy is something come up from, a very evil think tank about the need to take all of the resources and strategic minerals in this area. That's actually what the coup in Kazakhstan was about. That's what this predatory drive eastward of NATO is about. That's what the shift to the Pacific, the pivot to Asia is about. Eurasia is a lot like Africa because of the large geographic areas in total. There is a wealth of mineral resources, a wealth of oil resources, gas resources that are important for a modern economy, a modern capitalist economy, and a modern socialist economy, which is developed off of a capitalist economy. So it's not only ideological because, of course, the bourgeois sees and understands the threat of allowing a socialist state to continue to exist, but there's also that mineral wealth and motivation. And I hope what people see with the domestic politics and how it's shifted, and with what has happened to Afghanistan, what has happened to their people, and how the U.S. continues to prey on them, even from afar, now that their military has been defeated. It should be clear to everyone at this point that the masks of the so-called benevolent colonial society in the U.S. and Canada has come off completely. It has come off completely. Seeing the aftermath of what happened in 2021 when the graves were discovered. the mass graves full of children. That should have woken everybody up to what the true nature of this society is. But, I'll get into a little bit more and a little bit more in depth about what the grand strategy is, why the domestic politics are so terrible. And I will, re-stress that any successful strategy in the American hemisphere is going to have to be an anti-colonial one. And the bad socialists are not offering an anti-colonial strategy. And that is exactly why they can't pull in Black, Mexican, or indigenous people into their movement. So, that's basically my conclusion for what I'm going to talk about in the second half. For now, I'm just going to, preview the next song, Eternal Fact of Water. It's Jakub Zytecki featuring David Maxim Micic, and it's from the album Wishful Lotus Proof. So stay tuned for that, and then listen to that during the intermission, and after that, we'll be right back.
Let
Hello, welcome back. Song you heard just now was Eternal Fact of Water from Jakub Zytecki, featuring David Maxim Micic, and the album Wishful Lotus Proof. Very, very good use of, African polyrhythms. I'm always, well motivated and get a warm feeling whenever I see talented fusion musicians integrate and incorporate African music. It really shows the character of what Western proletarian culture really is. It's inherently multinational. So, very, very good thing. So now looking at Afghanistan, looking at the Middle East, and we'll take a break to talk about Israel for a moment, because recognizing Israel was definitely the most terrible mistake ever made by the Soviet Union. They fell right into the trap of accepting colonialism. And I argue that it was fundamentally rooted in maybe partially fatigue from the war, but also an underlying paternalism and racism within the Soviet Union towards Arabs. The harsh truth is that was probably the motivating factor of why they felt they needed to vindicate European Jews over the indigenous population of Palestine, and to basically allow what happened to the Palestinians, what they fought for and shed blood to prevent happening to them in the first place. They were about to be colonized by Germany. And they fought and built up their productive capacity to put a stop to that. And yet they've allowed it to happen to Arabs in Palestine. So that was a fundamental failing, both morally, strategically, because they ended up having a shooting war with Israel later on anyways. During the aftermath of the 6-Day War, with when they were trying to support Egypt, so it ended up biting them in the back anyways, and Israel ended up siding with the NATO axis anyways, so it ended up being a fruitless decision. All of this has ended up playing into what Zbigniew Brzezinski, probably the most evil strategic analyst in the United States, called the geostrategy for Eurasia. And that is about taking predatory control over Russia, China, and the other areas. And it runs under the premise that the U.S. is a dominant strategic power that will unlikely to be contested in the near future. So this is kind of going along with, the imperial hubris of, the end of history sort of things. Those kind of nonsense literatures that basically presuppose that everything begins and ends with bourgeois democracy. And that whole premise was the basis for why the CIA launched a false flag attack on their own people in 2001. Immediately after they did that, with the support of some Pakistani and Saudi intelligence, they were now able to establish a pretext for moving on to realize Zbigniew Brzezinski's Eurasian strategy. And with the Eurasian strategy, they preyed on Afghanistan because of the mineral deposits and its strategic location to many oil reserves in other countries. Afghanistan borders Iran, for example. It also borders China. And it borders Pakistan. So it's a very important geostrategic location. And that's why they made it a point to have this pretext to go after Afghanistan. As has already been noted historically, Al-Qaeda is a U.S. asset. That's always been the case. That was how they were when they used Al-Qaeda to topple the Soviet government that was in Afghanistan before. And it's been the case up until today with the war in Yemen and the war in Syria. So the illusion that the U.S. is doing this war on terror to deal with Al-Qaeda is just that, an illusion. The organization they were fighting in Afghanistan was a government, and that was the Taliban government. The Taliban government wanted proof and insisted on proof of Al-Qaeda's involvement in what happened in the United States. And incidentally, Al-Qaeda being involved in what happens wouldn't necessarily debunk the presupposition that the U.S. initiated the false flag, because Al-Qaeda is a U.S. asset. They've been playing this game this whole time, manipulating all of these groups in the Middle East in order to realize the Eurasian strategy, which is to topple belligerent governments and establish ones that are more compliant to their interests. This has been the case the whole time. This is imperialism. This is colonialism at its highest stage. And the criminal nature of what happened in Afghanistan is basically reinforced by the basic fact that they, as soon as they withdrew and as soon as they lost the war, they seized whatever assets they had in Afghanistan. And that was a sizable amount of assets. It was about $7 billion, because of the way the international trade system works. And because the U.S. ends up having this dollar monopoly, many countries are going to have to end up sending some of their assets through the United States. So as a result of that, they were able to cut off $7 billion from the Afghani people. And they are now starving right now as a result. They're being punished for resisting a criminal war occupation, a criminal occupation. They resisted an occupation, and now they're paying the price for it. And of course, Palestinians that resist are demonized as well. The Hamas organization, even though it's the legitimate government of Gaza, is called a terrorist organization. Simply because they are fighting their colonial occupiers. There is no other real reason. Hezbollah is the same thing, because they resisted a war of invasion on Lebanon by Israel and continue to do it to this day. They're being punished for that. A lot of these groups that are listed as terrorist organizations are being punished because they resisted occupations in their countries. And it should be noted that in the UN rules, the UN Charter, the people have a right to resist an occupation. That's actually established. So it is really, this is what rules-based order means. It is just a code word for imperialist domination, white supremacy. That's it. And that should be clear to you in how the domestic politics are going. You should see that Trump, without a doubt, is a belligerent and outright racist. And that's actually true for Joe Biden. That's why he wasn't able to win elections up until now. Because it was too obvious, both of these people. But the Democratic machine, run by the oil companies, the insurance companies, made sure that that was the candidate for the Democratic candidacy. What's happening right now in the politics of the United States is that the mask is coming off. The vicious, racist nature of the policy is being shown in the characters. And that's actually going to begin to come true for Canada as well. The Deputy Prime Minister is an avowed supporter of Nazi ideology. Chrystia Freeland. She supports the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. This is just Nazis. That's all it is. Justin Trudeau, pictures leaked of him painting his face black. The characters that you are seeing in the media, in the leadership of these countries, are just becoming more and more belligerent and more racist. That's true for Poland. It's true for a lot of Europe. And it's true for Canada and the U.S. The reason is because the mask is now coming off. It is not like they were caught doing these things and are now going to have to behave and engage in reforms. No. The jig is up, so now they're done going along with the routine. They're done going along with the charade. The colony is becoming the colony. The military occupation is becoming the military occupation. That's the truth. The harsh reality is these politics are getting very dangerous precisely because they are getting desperate. They're getting backed into a corner, and it is now becoming clear that they can do a lot more when the mask is off. So that's the truth. Those that are in this country, born in this country, or have a birthright to the land in this country should come to the realization that it is not a game anymore. It is not a game. And if you don't want the genocide to intensify, if you don't want the brutality of capitalism to become real for you, it is now time to really study up on what a real successful anti-colonial movement looks like. That is the communist movement. And it's not a game. You have to take it seriously. You have to take it real seriously. Because right now, it's go time. And if you're not ready to fight, get ready to stand up to a wall. That's the truth. The harsh truth is things are going to get very bad here. they're not going to get better. They're going to get worse until revolution comes. And until the people rally and get ready to do said revolution. I think colonized people definitely need to rally and wake up. They shouldn't have illusions about this colony. What they do to people around the world is what they're going to do to you. As soon as they begin to see the resistance intensify abroad and successfully push them out abroad. Once they're overextended and they're come back, that brutality that they showed to people around the world will come here. So it's time to do something. It's go time. It's not a game. And the politics are shifting in that direction. So it's time to wake up. And with that dire warning I gave to the people, I'm going to, close the show on a much brighter note. It's a good song to end an album. It's the last song of a small little EP called The End of Everything. It's a 3-part series EP where you have 3 beautiful paintings and Plini just plays beautiful music over both of them. So stay tuned for Paper Moon by Plini. That is from the album The End of Everything. And you'll listen to that song after the outro. And that'll be it for the show. We'll see you next week.
Socially radical.